Well, not much.
Sit by somebody, maybe I feel get my mind. Feel a little better.
It's 6 o'clock, and we'll go ahead and get started. But before we do, I want to clarify our role here tonight. We're here at Mr. Garland's request to appeal his dismissal from the Selma Police Department for violation of policies and procedures relating to the incident on February the 10th, 2013. The burden of proof rests with Mr. Garland to prove that he did not violate those policies. The proceedings in General Sessions Court should have no bearing on the decision made here tonight. We're here because policies and procedures were violated, and that should be the scope of our hearings tonight. As the Mayor and Board of Aldermen, we are obligated to uphold the charter, the municipal codes, ordinances, policies, and procedures currently in place without personal bias or pressure of popular opinion. We've all taken a sworn oath of office and should consider this as a matter of public trust. Tonight's decision should be predicated on that premise. How we handle this decision process measures the depth and breadth of our integrity as a governing body. The city cannot or will not uphold its laws and policies, and all credibility is lost. Selma Police Department has policies and procedures that all officers are aware of and are held accountable for. Police officers are in fact held to a very high standard due to the nature of their duties and their constant interaction with the public. We've made every attempt to be consistent and fair when addressing every violation of policy. The review process is well documented and not prejudiced by friendships or personalities. And at this point in time, Chief, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll proceed.
Mr. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, on February the 11th, 2013, Patrolman Garland came to my office here at the Selma Police Department at approximately 9:14 a.m. to discuss an incident that had happened on 2/10 of this year. Officer Garland advised me that on Saturday the 9th of February that he had prepared food for himself, his live-in girlfriend, Ms. Westbrooks, and her daughter. He advised me that this was to be a family day. Around 11 p.m., Ms. Westbrooks and her sister left and did not return until after 1 a.m. Officer Garland stated that he was sitting at the table eating when Ms. Westbrooks turned the light off and went to bed. He advised he turned the light back on. She came back in and turned it off again. Ms. Westbrooks had gone back to bed, and Officer Garland advised me that they got into an argument. He pulled her out of the bed, threw her to the floor. He advised she started to hit him, and that's when he shoved her into the wall. He advised he grabbed her phone and was leaving, but she got her phone back to call the officer. I asked Officer Garland if he'd been drinking. He advised not much. At this point, I advised him that he was suspended until further notice, pending an administrative investigation. The administrative investigation was turned over to Lieutenant Miller.
I believe most of you have the memo that I sent to the chief regarding my findings based upon what he told me, conversations with Corporal Bob Pipkins, who was the officer that arrested Mr. Garland, and also Lynn Engel, the investigator employed with the city. After discussing, reading the statements, the report, what Chief Burks had told me in the policy, I identified 3 policies that was violated by Mr. Garland that night. The first one was a standard of conduct. It is the Department Policy Code 2.10, Section A. It's a standard of conduct. Members shall conduct their private and professional lives in such a manner as to avoid adverse reflection upon themselves as a member of the department. Also, Department Policy 2.10, prohibited actions in Section 8, number 16. No officer shall conduct themselves in a manner unbecoming to a police officer and detrimental to the service. And also, Department Policy number 16, or number 17, 2.10, no officer shall commit any criminal offense. Based upon those, I use the criteria to come to those violations. As a lot of the criteria covers this multiple of those 3. One is that Corporal Pipkins, after conducting his investigation on the scene, determined that Mr. Garland was the primary aggressor in a domestic assault. Mr. Pipkins and Mr. Garland, according to Mr. Pipkins, Mr. Engel admitted that he did enter the bedroom where Ms. Westbrooks was at, and he used physical force to turn over Ms. Westbrooks. And by that, reviewing the assault statutes in the state and also our policy, regardless of house life, that moving of someone against their will, that constitutes an assault, and therefore that would go into an admission of an assault. And with his admission that to the chief, also his admission, and then that comes into the final one of committing a criminal offense, which would have been the assault. And that's based upon that. The recommendation at my recommendation, and I'll read it to you word for word, in the past, the standard disciplinary action for violation of these policies with similar circumstances has been dismissal. I see no unique circumstances that would dictate any different action in this case, and therefore I recommended the dismissal of Quintin Garland. So, yes, that's
Y'all have any questions for County Chief? If not, Mr. Garland, you got any response?
I'd like to say
I'm
that
gonna speak on Mr. Garland's behalf and give him the opportunity to speak, so that we can find with the board.
No, actually, this is Mr. Garland's hearing.
But I am his representative.
This is not a court proceeding. This is simply a termination hearing. Mr. Garland needs an interim charge.
If you don't want his representative, his attorney to speak on his behalf, fine, odd, but I will certainly allow Mr. Garland to respond to any questions that you may have, Mayor.
I'd like to wait to hear his response to the allegation. Yes. That's what we're waiting on.
I didn't see any certain procedure in the handbook, but Mr. Garland, go ahead and respond to the charge.
let me tell y'all, since I've been working for this department, I love working here. And like I said before, I love working for this town. The people in the community I love. I build a relationship with a lot of people here. Even the children at the school, ball parks. I also coach Mr. Simpson's baseball team. Me and Nikki Atkins, we coach the basketball team. I was always involved in this city. I wear a badge, but I go beyond my badge. It's the calling what I do, and I love doing it. And I feel like I'm one of the best officers here with this police department. I never had any problems with any other police officer. I've done what I was told. And I just want to let y'all know I make the right decision.
How do you respond to the violation charge? Did you commit them?
No, sir.
So, they're lying?
I didn't say it was lying.
Okay.
Did you commit domestic assault?
No, sir.
Was your case dismissed?
Yes, it was. Ma'am, if you don't mind, I know you want me to say some things, but I have people here that I think can speak on my behalf, that know what type of officer I am. And if it's okay, can they say something? Whoever wants to say something, it's okay if they can say
They
something.
can, but it's not, Garland, it's not a matter of your performance as a police officer.
Yes, sir.
Our actions were based solely on our investigation and what happened on February 10th. And that really should be the scope of our, because I know you get a lot of good character witnesses, and I wouldn't doubt that at all. But we're kind of here to hear this scope right here, so that would be what I would have you respond to.
Mr. Mayor, may I respond? Sure. I think there's something the board needs to know. I don't know if the Board of Aldermen have seen the statement written by Officer Engel. I know that when I went to represent Ms. Garland in the criminal case, the district attorney found it very odd that that statement had not made it into the police file that was presented to the court for the prosecution of Mr. Garland. I believe Mr. Engel's statement, and with my discussions with him, he was the first officer on the scene. He said there was no indication, none whatsoever, of a domestic assault. Ms. Westbrook's, what she stated in her statement that it happened, the physical evidence did not match up. For instance,
We got.
her shirt was not stretched. She had no marks upon her. Nothing matched up whatsoever. Miss Westbrook's, there was two people in that home when this allegedly happened. Miss Westbrook, she pled the fifth. Now what that means is that she thought she might incriminate herself if she testified by making a false statement. Now, if Miss Westbrook pled the fifth, then there's no evidence, no physical evidence, no other evidence whatsoever that Mr. Garland committed domestic assault. And I'm not here, Mr. Garland is here to speak on his behalf, and so are these people. I'm not in any way trying to take over for him, but I want the board to know all the facts, not just some of the facts. And I don't know if they've seen Mr. Engel's statement.
They got a copy of that. They sure did. They also got copies of Mr. Garland's conversation with the chief, where he told him that it happened. And certainly we got the police report.
Has the board seen the transcript of the preliminary hearing that took place in General Sessions Court?
No, and as I say, that's separate and apart from this hearing.
It's the same factual basis though.
Well,
You know,
you could make that argument.
well,
We're trying to not have court.
I know that, and I'm not certainly trying to have court. I just want all the facts presented. This man's future, his career, and basically his life is in you gentlemen's hands. And I want you to have all the facts.
Anybody got any questions?
I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Garland. Are you saying that what the chief just said that you told him is not true?
I didn't say that. Like I said, I didn't commit domestic assault.
But you still didn't answer my question. What the chief just said you told him in his office.
Okay.
Is that true?
Explain yourself. Were you defending yourself?
Yes, I was. But listen, y'all. Me and this young lady have a spat, okay? Y'all can tell me all day that I'm committed for domestic assault. I'm telling you I'm not. I love that girl, and I helped her, and I did what I was supposed to do by her. Y'all, people can judge me and say, well, yeah, he's guilty. But that's not the case here. I'm a good man. I'm a good officer. And the day when we had my interview, you was sitting right there, she was sitting right here, you was sitting right here, and y'all told me that y'all was gonna hire me. And I came from Nashville. I worked in the city of Nashville, bigger than this department, but I came here because I love working here. Okay, this is all I know, this is my career. Okay, and that's all I can tell y'all.
And I don't disagree with that. As a matter of fact, when you left unexpectedly.
Right.
And came back, then we brought you back as well.
That's right.
But again, this is what we're dealing with tonight.
Is the policy, I noticed one violation that's alleged is that he had actions unbecoming of an officer. I've noticed that, I reviewed all the personnel files. That's not to be smart or anything like that. I just wanted to see basically what is the disciplinary actions for that type of violation. And I've noticed at least 5 officers have the same violation are still on the force. And I'm not saying that has any bearing on this case, but you know, we're looking at extremes here. If one extreme is to terminate him, how do we get to that extreme if the other people were not terminated?
I'm not familiar with anybody that has this to this level, because we've had 5 other cases in the last, how many years, Chief?
2.5, maybe.
2 of them directly, exactly like this, that we have terminated, and 3 before that.
It's my understanding Mr. Pitkins has been charged before with a domestic, was dismissed after he completed some anger management, etc. He was eventually hired back. Mr. Garland's case was not held in abeyance. It was dismissed outright because there was no proof that this happened.
Tony, you want to address that?
In what aspect?
Mr. Pipkin was not charged with domestic assault. He was charged with domestic vandalism. All he did was kick his ex-wife's car. He didn't touch his ex-wife.
The police report might be wrong, but I have a police report and it said domestic vandalism and domestic assault. Domestic assault was dismissed, vandalism was held in abeyance upon his good behavior. There's some other officers, and I really don't want to call all their names out, but there's several officers that have actions that are a lot more provable than Mr. Garland's that are still on his force. Mr. Garland was terminated before his criminal case. The last officer terminated, Jeremy Wilson, he wasn't terminated until after he pled guilty.
He actually resigned.
But his termination letter, the resignation was after his court case was over. And I've got his file as well. So I didn't understand really why was he terminated instead of just put on suspension without pay until there was a full investigation, the criminal case was over, because one violation alleged is that he committed a criminal offense. Well, you can't say that until the criminal court makes that decision, and they made their decision, and it was dismissed at a probable cause level, which don't happen much. No, I just ask gentlemen to please consider this man. He's a good man. This did not happen. It did not happen. It was blown out of proportion. He's embarrassed. He's embarrassed by what happened. But he did not assault this woman. This man's career, he's a young man, he's been a good officer. I was overwhelmed by the people that called my office, people that he's arrested, that said he was a good man and that he acted properly and that his character is impeccable. It's impeccable. And he does not have a criminal charge. He does not have a conviction because this did not happen. Please give him another chance. Do what's right. It doesn't matter what happened to these other people. That's fine. But look at this man for who he is and for what his position is. You know, these people here are outstanding people in this community, and they're not here for no reason. They're here to support this man because they know he's cares. They're putting their names on the line for this man. And so am I.
Man.
So we ask you to make the right decision, please.
The policies that were violated in here, talking about no officer shall conduct himself in a manner unbecoming of a police officer and detrimental to service. We could probably look at several people. If you put a beard to your lips and you're off duty, hey, you shouldn't be stopping anybody out here if you're a police officer and arresting them for DUI or anything. And I'm sure we've got several people to do that. And looking at this 2.10A17, no officer shall commit any criminal offense. Well, allegedly, these charges were against Mr. Garland. He had his day in court and it got dismissed. And if you look at that, he's not guilty for that. I've heard several people on the force, including the chief, talk about how outstanding Officer Garland is. The mayor and several other board members, not to mention people all over the town. When he's in uniform, he's one of the best we've ever had. I mean, everybody knows that. He was off duty when allegedly this stuff happened. And you can come up with altercations that people have all the time, husbands and wives, arguments, things like that. I think Officer Garland's a good officer. I think he's beneficial to the Selma Police Department. And I think he had his day in court and was dismissed. And to me, looking at these violations, you know, if you say he went to court and he got proven not guilty, then we're gonna sit up here and say it's still a violation of our policies. I mean, to me, we need to sit back and look at everything over again. I'd like to make the motion that we reinstate Mr. Garland back to the Selma Police Department, subject to him serving a 60-day suspension without pay, retroactive to the day of his termination on February 15th, and subject to the completion of an anger management class, and also that he be placed on a 90-day probationary period starting on his first day of reinstatement.
Then hearing no second, that motion dies, and I would assume these proceedings are over. And I thank all of you for coming.
Remember that, voters. Remember that. It's treated differently.
I want to make I have had to recuse myself from all these proceedings because of that consideration.
But you in second. You in second. No, we don't want to have you in second.
Some of us to talk that know him, and I know him on the basis of his interaction with a female.
Attorney Simpson.
And it had to have been something pushed him to the left.
Your that you used was a fact conflict of interest. You representing him as an attorney. That's one hat. You hold another hat here as a commissioner. That's a second hat. And then you hold a third hat. So if you think holding one hat is a violation of whatever or not right, that's not right, because either you be an attorney You hold it, you represent him as a lawyer. Now you're here working here, you are now a commissioner. So your being here has nothing to do with your getting a point.
The ethical consideration is a lawyer
But-
has a
but-
point, has a point.
I
These
know.
are ethical.
But we gon' see
Now you
about
can't
it.
be an attorney and go get somebody.
No, what we have to do, Attorney Simpson he's been a friend of mine for years, but Attorney Simpson has to answer to the bar board as to why that he could not represent him here when he's wearing 3 hats.
That's right.
That's what I'm trying to do. Ethically, as a lawyer, I couldn't do it. The bar is talking
But you
about.
on
But then you're here, but you're right here.
I mean, you second, I mean, you second.
Remember that, I can remember, but I'm just telling you why.
No, we're gonna go to the bar board with this American Bar Board and the Tennessee Bar Board as a backup, because that is wrong. That's wrong, you can't do that.
He was good enough to represent to get his money, but he wasn't good enough to put it back on the job. We see how it is around here.
Oh, it's not over. It ain't over.
No,
till
it's
the
not
fat lady
over.
sings.
Long shot.
This is not over. Matter of fact, this makes it worse. Because you have people here who actually have 2 and 3 convictions that were expunged from their file. Expunged mean they were charged. They were charged. In order for something to be expunged, they were charged. So it's not over. It ain't over till the fat lady sings.
And it's not over, and
Matter of fact, it's supposed to get
and
worse.
everybody else come to this town. And I will bring them.
All right.
That's a nice little